Chapter 22. The command arrow spreads heroic fame. Poem. Friends across the four seas are as steadfast as gold and stone. How can I bear to ask how many years have passed since our parting? We laugh together, speechless, recalling how we met in a dream. In life, there are only friends, not the dignity of ruler and subject, father and son. There is the love of brothers and even things that cannot be discussed before one's wife, yet friends are the ones one can consult. Therefore, friends are the most unforgettable and the most memorable. Moreover, when heroes meet, their spirits are aligned. There is no suspicion upon first meeting, no distinction of wealth or status. If they are true friends, a parting feels like an eternity, and they constantly seek opportunities to reunite. It was late autumn, September, and Shan Xingxin was at home supervising the farm hands and servants in charge of the autumn harvest. As he sat in the hall, a servant announced the arrival of Masters Wang and Li. Shan Xingxin greeted them warmly, inviting them to dismount and come inside. He then led them to his study, laid out some ready-made wine and food, and they began to reminisce about their recent visit. Xingxin said, "I received your letter at the end of last year, and I was just settling in when you arrived. Why did it take you so long to come?" Bading replied. "Since we parted, Li Xuansui was invited to Chang'an by the Yang Yue Duke's residence. Later, I delayed my journey from elsewhere. When I was about to go to Chang'an to meet Brother Li, I passed through Xiaohua Mountain and was detained by Qi Guoyuan. I stayed there for a long time and wrote to you, brother, asking you to come to my residence for the festival. Unexpectedly, after sending the letter, I met Brother Qin from Kizhu." Xingxin exclaimed in surprise. "He went back to my residence, and I heard he is now an official under the general's command. How come you are meeting me again in Guanzhong?" Bading said. "I was sent by my official to the capital to offer gifts to the Yang Yue Duke on his birthday." Qi Guoyuan. Not recognizing Xiubao, he insisted on the custom of blocking the road. The two fought fiercely, neither gaining the upper hand, until I came down the mountain and invited him up. He mentioned going to the capital to pay respects on his birthday, which stirred up his interest in seeing the lanterns in Chang'an, thus breaking his promise to his brother. About 60 li from Chang'an, at Yangfu Temple, he met Chai Sicheng, the son-in-law of Tang Gong of Taiyuan. Xiubao had once saved his father-in-law from a great calamity at Jiashugang, hence the shrine he built to repay the kindness, called the Bayad Shrine. Xiubao mentioned this while visiting the shrine, which Sicheng learned of, and he invited him to stay there. After the new year, on the 14th of the first month, he went to the capital, and on the 15th he caused a terrible disaster, killing Yuan Gongzi. Xingxin stuck out his tongue in shock and exclaimed, "You scare me to death." I heard that 6 people caused a great disturbance in Chang'an, and I was very busy, not knowing who they were. Later, I found out that they were Li Yuan's retainers from Taiyuan, which put my mind at ease. "It was you who did this," Li Xuansui said. "This matter was too reckless. If it weren't for Tang Gong's great speed and Yuan Shu's lack of concrete evidence, a great disaster would have almost befallen my cousin." Shan Xingxin said. "In that case, Uncle Bao has been at home for a long time." Bading said, "He left that very night." Xingxin said, "I have wanted to go to Shandong to see him several times, but I haven't had the opportunity. Today, hearing your words, my virtuous brother has rekindled my interest in Shandong." Bading said, "Younger brother. We came to see you, brother, after a long separation, and also to invite you to Shandong." Xingxin asked, "What brings you here?" Bading replied, "This year, on the 23rd of September, it will be the 60th birthday of your mother, Xiubao's mother. Xiubao is a filial son. On the night of the uproar in the capital, we parted hastily, and he immediately instructed me. My mother's birthday is on the 23rd of September. If you don't mind, please come to my humble home." Therefore, I went to Chang'an to find Brother Li, and by chance, I met Chai Sicheng there. He was in the capital doing something for his father-in-law, and when we talked about birthday celebrations, He happily mentioned that his father-in-law had several thousand taels of silver to give to Shubao. He wanted to go home to get it and send it over. That's why I came with Brother Xuansui first and invited you to come along. Like the intertwined glue of Chen Lei, their bond as strong as blood ties remains unbroken. Song Zhu extends his heartfelt wishes to his nephew, and together they raise a toast to a long and prosperous future in the North Hall. Xingzin said, "This is the best thing. There's just one thing, I have many friends. Those who know the ways say that Bo Dang invited me to Kizhu to celebrate the birthday of Shu Bao's mother. Those who don't know the ways say that I'm biased in my treatment of friends. When I went to Shandong to celebrate the birthday of Qin's mother, I only invited Wang Bo Dang and didn't take me with me. Won't they blame me?" Li Xuansui said, "I have a foolish idea that will allow you to achieve two things at once." Xingzin said, "Please tell me." Li Xuansui said, "Why don't you invite a few of your close friends to go with you? Firstly, it will bring honor to Shu Bao, and secondly, it will show that you don't favor your friends. Since Shu Bao is still young, you can bring more gifts to show that you understand our friendship." Xingzin said, "Good. There's just one thing, they are all friends from Lezhu. If I send invitations now, I'm afraid that the distances will vary, and whether they are home or not, the journey will be too long and they might miss the birthday celebration, which would be undesirable. I also have a reason. You too, please drink your wine." Xingzin returned to his study, took out 20 taels of silver, wrapped them into 2 bundles, and took out 2 of his command tokens. But Xingzin wasn't a military officer, so how could he use command tokens? These tokens were actually bamboo tallies, bearing Xingzin's name and signature, used to gain the trust of heroes in the martial world. Friends who saw these tallies would act as if summoned by a king, without waiting for the emperor's arrival. The 2 command tokens were placed in 2 places on a silver pouch, placed on a plate, and a young servant was ordered to bring them to the table. When Wang and Li, the 2 friends, were to issue them, 2 messengers were summoned. Many of his men responded in unison, "We're all here." Xingzin pointed to 2 men and said, "You too. Come here and listen to my instructions. You too must find the reins and prepare 2 horses. Each of you should take 10 taels of silver for travel expenses and fodder, and each of you should take a command arrow and depart separately. One of you should go from Liangxiang, Zhuzhou County, Shunyi Village, Yuzhou, Hebei. If you know someone there, show him the command arrow. We'll meet at Erxianzhuang on the 15th of September. That'll take about 7 or 8 days. We'll reach Kizhu by the 23rd of September to celebrate Grandma Qin's birthday. If we don't reach Erxianzhuang by the 15th of September, we'll head out of Shandong and go straight to Master Yu's manor in Wunan Village, Yanzhou. As for the old man on the eastern route, don't make a detour. Please go to Lezhu to prepare birthday gifts and meet him on the official road so we can go to Kizhu together to celebrate his birthday." The 2 men agreed and went their separate ways. Indeed. Urgent dispatches flew like rain, and good friends gathered like clouds. Wang Badeng and Li Xuansui lingered and drank at the estate of Master Shan. On the 14th, 3 friends from the northern route arrived. Zhang Gongjin, Shidanai, and Bai Xiandao from Liangxiang, Zhuzhou, Shunyi Village, and Yuzhou. They were to depart the next day. Xingzin then ordered his men to bring 2 invitations, saying to Badeng, "Tong Pizhai and Jin Guojun once exchanged greetings with Xubao. Don't forget the 2 of them. Send them invitations to Shandong." Tong Pizhai and Jin Guojun invited him to Jinan Prefecture to celebrate Xubao's mother's birthday. Upon inquiring with the messenger, they learned that all their friends from the northern route had arrived the following day. They then packed gifts, prepared horses, and left the city to meet their friends at Erxian Manor, where they reminisced and drank. They set off very early the next day, with 8 guests and hosts, and more than 10 followers. Their luggage, gifts, and weapons were carried in a small cart. One of them led the way on horseback, seeking lodging ahead, and they headed towards Shandong via Runan. In September, a refreshing autumn breeze blew, and leaves turned yellow. The heroes galloped on, their saddles spurring. Suddenly a cloud of dust rose, and the scouts on horseback reported, "Gentlemen, we've reached the Shandong border, but a bandit leader is blocking our way. A young man is fighting ahead, and we can't go any further." Why did this subordinate address a bandit as master? Because several of these 8 men had served in the bandits, and thus they felt awkward using that term. Xingzin, pleased with himself, immediately laughed and said, "I wonder which brother saw my command token and asked for some travel expenses along the way. Which one of you should go and see?" Tang Pijai and Jin Guojun, assuming he was one of their own heroes and unaware of the dangers of the bandits, replied to Xingzin, "We too are willing to go." They spurred their horses and rode off. Xingzin nodded to Bading from his saddle and said, "These 2 brothers are close friends, but I've never seen them fight. The moment they heard the words outlaws, they rushed to the front." Bading shook his head. "Second brother Shan, these 2 friends are not well behaved." Xingzin asked. "Why?" Bading replied. "They work in Lezhu and have no connections." Hearing the words outlaws, they immediately became hostile. Because they have no connections, they don't recognize those who block their way, and those who block their way don't recognize them either. If their words are inappropriate, they'll fight. If something goes wrong with these 2 friends, Tong and Jin, I've invited them to Shandong and they're traveling alone, so I can't refuse. If they are skilled and their friends who block their way are lost, they're acting on my orders, which would damage the integrity of the martial world." Xingxin said, "Brother, you're right. You should go and see." Bading said, "I dare not refuse." He took his silver spear and rode forward. As soon as dust rose, he saw Jin and Tong defeated and on their way. It was Chai Sicheng who had come to congratulate Shuba with his plans. He carried heavy luggage and wore ostentatious clothes, bumping into Yu Junda and Cheng Yaojin, who then blocked his path to intercept him. Chai Sicheng was somewhat skilled, but he couldn't defeat both of them. Just then, Jin and Tong arrived and drew their swords to help. Unaware that Cheng Yaojin was relying on his strength, he wasn't afraid of them. He left Yu Junda and Chai Sicheng to fight, and then he came running, hacking away Jin and Tong with his axe. He pursued them relentlessly, as if. The eagle's eyes are sharp, and the rabbit scurries about its burrow. Jin and Tong, seeing Wang Bading, exclaimed, "What a ruthless bandit!" Bading smiled, let them pass, and caught up with them. He immediately raised his spear and shouted, "Friends, wait, we're both bandits." Yao Jin, unable to understand the dialect, raised his axe and swung it at Bading's head, saying, "I'm not a pushover. How can I be a bandit?" Bading chuckled inwardly. "What a bore, we're both friends in the greenwood." Yao Jin said, "Even in the 7 forests, you'll have to pay your toll." He then unleashed a torrent of blows on Bading's upper body, like a torrential downpour, a whirlwind of attacks. Bading's spear didn't return to his hand. He merely hooked, parried, and deflected. When Yao Jin's strength was exhausted and his axe technique became chaotic, he loosened his left hand's grip on the spear shaft, and with his right hand, like a silver dragon emerging from the sea or a jade python stretching its waist, he lunged at Yao Jin's face and throat, thrusting forward. Bo Dang showed mercy, withdrawing his spear just as it reached Cheng Yaojin's throat. Otherwise he would have been thrown from his horse. Yaojin used his axe to hook the spear away, but managed to pull it off, sending both man and horse tumbling. Unable to defend himself, he spurred his horse and fled. Bo Dang pursued him, asking where he came from. Yaojin cried out, "Master Yu, save me!" At this moment, Yu Junda was tied up with Chai Sicheng and unable to escape. Bo Dang, seeing this, said, "Master Chai, Master Yu, don't fight. We're all family heading to Kizhu." The 3 of them dismounted to greet him. Cheng Yaojin, panting heavily, stood on the side looking around. Yu Junda was also called to come and greet him. Yu Junda asked Bo Dang, "Have you seen Brother Shan?" Bo Dang pointed behind him and said, "Isn't that Xingxin over there?" Because Cheng Yaojin and Tong were quite skilled bandits, Shan Xingxin and his group had come to their aid. Upon arrival, they greeted each other. It was truly, "Don't say you're like a drifting duckweed, but you're happy to see the wind bring you together." Bading said to Xingxin, "This is Cheshire Ma." They all bowed in greeting. Xingxin asked, "And what about Jin Guojun's strong friend from earlier?" Yujunda replied, "That's my friend Cheng Zhiji." Everyone laughed and exchanged greetings. Yujunda wanted everyone to return to the estate to rest their horses. Xingxin said, "Today is September 21st. If we go to your estate, we might miss your birthday celebration. After the birthday greetings, please stay at your residence for a few more days. Did you bring your gift, my worthy brother?" Junda replied, "It's just a token of my appreciation." 11 friends traveled together to Jinan, 40 li from Kizhu. It was already sunset when they arrived at Yiseng village, a town with 300 or 400 households. This town was named Yiseng village because it was covered in mulberry and hemp, and because it was government land, allowing the people to harvest freely. It was bustling during the silkworm season in late spring and early summer. In late autumn, September, most houses were closed, except for one large family who built a fine building to welcome merchants. Their men all went to Yiseng village to stay at inns. The heroes dismounted at the inn, and the innkeeper lit a fire, carried their luggage into the study, and fed the horses. The heroes invited them to a thatched cottage for drinks. Suddenly, 3 horsemen came galloping along the official road. Who were these 3 horsemen? They were officials from Yuzhou, sent by Lord Luo, carrying a token of his authority to inform Zhang Gongjin, Shidanai, and the Yuchi brothers. Shidanai was still a new bannerman without official rank, so he was sent ahead. The Yuchi brothers wrote a report to the commander's office to inform the young master Luo Cheng. The young master told his mother, and the old lady also remembered that September 23rd was her sister-in-law's birthday, so they discussed sending an official to deliver gifts. Yuchi, through the young master's encouragement, arranged a mission to Shandong, using the official position for personal gain, to celebrate Qin's mother's birthday. The 2 who arrived were Yuchi Nan and Yuchi Bei, accompanied by a groom carrying a backpack, making a total of 3 horses. They happened to arrive at Yiseng village that day. The innkeeper greeted the 2 gentlemen, saying, "Kizhu is still 40 li away. There are no places to stay along the way, so please rest at our small inn." Yuchi gave the instructions and told his men to bring in the backpack. The Yuchi brothers dismounted and entered the inn. The innkeeper came out to greet them, saying, "You 2 gentlemen were drinking upstairs for quite some time, and they seem to be quite drunk. Since you are honored guests, it might be inconvenient for you to go upstairs. There is a clean seat downstairs. Please make yourself at home for dinner." Yuchi Nan said, "This innkeeper is truly considerate. We shouldn't associate with those drunkards. Let's stay downstairs." The innkeeper instructed that food and wine be served, and the 2 brothers ate by themselves. Meanwhile, upstairs, the 11 heroes were drinking and making merry. They were only half drunk when Cheng Yaojin became drunk. He loved wine and would drink until he was completely intoxicated. Holding a cup of wine in his hand, he thought about his troubles. Years outside the pass, how miserable. Not long after returning home, I was invited by Master Yu to do this business at Chang'e Forest. Today, I've made friends with heroes from all over the world. I'm truly happy. These thoughts lingered in his mind, but once he had them, he spoke them aloud. After finishing the cup of wine, he slammed it down on the table as if he had drunk it all himself and shouted, "I'm so happy!" He put the cup down, and it shattered into pieces, but that wasn't the worst of it. He kicked the floorboards, breaking a section of the floorboards. His capacity for celebration was boundless, and his words flowed freely in his drunken state. The thatched huts built by the local people of Shandong had thin planks of willow wood with knots on top. How could they withstand his kick? He broke a plank, sending dust flying and ruining the feast of the Yuchi brothers. Yuchi Nan, still respectful, brushed the dust off his sleeve and said, "This friend, how rustic." Yuchi Bei, however, was a young hero. He wouldn't tolerate it, looking up at the hut and cursing, "What kind of beasts are up there? Eating grass, yet they're running around like this." Cheng Yaojin, never one to back down, heard the cursing, sat near the stairs, leaped down and rushed towards Yuchi Bei. Bei grabbed Cheng Yaojin, and the two heroes, with their immense strength, tore their silk robes to shreds, clattering and punching wildly. Luckily, the thatched hut was like a pillar, otherwise it would have collapsed in an instant. Nan, not wanting to directly help his brother, adopted his official tone and asked the waiter, "What government office is in charge of this place?" He acted as if he were an official himself. Hearing this from upstairs, Xingzin became angry and said, "Gentlemen, this guy downstairs is quite arrogant. In this desolate village, a drunken brawl breaks out and the strongest wins. What government office is in charge? Who has any jurisdiction over this place? Go down and beat that guy who's asking what government office is in charge of." He spoke with a Yuzhou accent, and Zhang Gongjin, who was upstairs, was also from Yuzhou. Gongjin said, "Brother, please calm down. It sounds like someone from my hometown." Xingzin said, "Brother, go down and see." Gongjin went down the stairs, and after a few steps he saw Nan. He turned and came up to Xingzin, saying, "It's Kunio." Xingzin was overjoyed and told him to hurry down. Nan saw Gongjin coming down with a group of heroes and guessed they were Xingzin's friends. He dismissed Bei. Yujunda also dismissed Cheng Yaojin. Yaojin and Yukai changed their clothes and came to greet him, exchanging pleasantries. The host ordered the bartender to take an axe upstairs and smash the broken plank back into place. Then a neat table of wine was set up. Shan Xingxin and his 13 band of heroes lit lamps and drank. The revelry had worn off somewhat. Each person had their own preferences. Those who enjoyed drinking stayed upstairs under the lamplight, playing drinking games with the leftover food and wine. Those who couldn't bear the exertion had their servants prepare bedding for them to sleep in their rooms. A few others, still in high spirits, left the inn. In the deep of night, under the faint moonlight, they strolled hand in hand in the mulberry grove, reminiscing about their long separation. Upstairs, Zhang Gongjin, Bai Xiandao, and Shi Danai, who had been drinking together, were originally drinking buddies. Because Danai was serving as an official in Yuzhou after a martial arts tournament. They hadn't seen each other for a long time and wanted to drink and reminisce. Tong Pijai and Jin Guojun, having been defeated by Cheng Yaojin during the day, were weak and listless. Chai Sicheng, accustomed to his privileged life, went asleep first. Shan Xingxin, Yu Yuanwei, Wang Bading, Li Xuansui, and Yu Qinan, these 5 men, talked for a long time in the mulberry grove and also fell asleep one after another. At dawn, they rose and headed to Kizhu. Yisang village was 40 li from the prefecture. They set off at dawn, traveling 20 li before daybreak. 20 li from the city, they were greeted by many people. It wasn't someone from Qin Shubao's side who came to greet them, but rather young men from brokerage firms in Kizhu City. Various merchants called out to each other, some selling rice and grain, others silk and satin, horses from the west and cloth from the north, timber, etc., and tugged at their luggage. Xingxin on horseback instructed the men, "Don't tug at our luggage, we have a former master. The Jia family's shop outside the west gate sells whips and canes, that's our former master." It turned out that Jia Runfu ran a whip and cane shop, and Xingxin owned horses on the western route, selling them in Shandong, all under the Jia family's wing. 2 young men were among them, and they recognized Master Shan. "Ah, it's Master Shan. We're from the Jia family's shop," Xingxin said. "Have one lead the luggage slowly, and have the other inform your master." Meanwhile, Jia Runfu, also a friend of Qin Shubao, got up early that morning, went to his study to prepare gifts and make a payment slip for the birthday celebration with Qin's mother the next day. A young man entered and said, Master Shan from Lezhu along with 20 other gentlemen have arrived." Jia Runfu smiled and said, "Brother Shan and his friends have come here today for tomorrow's birthday celebration, so I must be the host. Take these gifts. We can't celebrate the birthday ourselves, we must join in the formalities." He instructed the cooks to prepare a simple meal for the guests, about 10 tables of food. he told the steward. Go to the city and buy some fresh fruits and delicacies. For the main banquet, prepare 10 tables of wine as well. Although you have many men, give them plenty of wine. Call the musicians, make it a grand spectacle. He changed his clothes and went out to greet them. Xingxin and his friends dismounted and walked into the street, followed by their carriages and horses. Jia Runfu greeted them on the main street. Xingxin let his friends go first, and after passing through 3 gates, they entered a large hall. His men carried the carriages and luggage into the guest rooms, removed the saddles and bridles from the horses, and fed them in their stables. If it were another household, they could accommodate the people, but not these large horses. Many of these horses were exceptionally fine steeds, with large reins, and could not share a stable. Each horse required its own stable. Fortunately, he was a traveling man, yet he could accommodate these horses. In the hall, a prayer mat was laid out, and old friends greeted each other with bows. Those who had never met before exchanged greetings and names, each showing great courtesy. They sat down, had tea served, and were given horse feed. Xingxin, however, couldn't wait and called out, Jia Runfu, wouldn't it be better to invite Xiubao to your residence today so we can meet him? Otherwise, if he goes tomorrow, the host won't be able to prepare enough food and drink for us. Jia Runfu thought, today is an even-numbered day, and Xiubao is busy with his bandit affairs. He's a sentimental man. If he hears Xingxin is here and neglects his official duties, he'll surely come to meet me. If I didn't know about this, inviting him would be fine, but if I did, I'd put him in a difficult position. With so many people around, it was inconvenient to speak, so he could only vaguely agree. I'll send someone to invite him. He then said to the others, as soon as Brother Shan arrives at my humble abode, he'll send someone to invite Brother Qin. He'll probably be here soon. Why did Jia Runfu say this? He was afraid that after his friends finished eating and went to play in the neighborhood, they would know there were 2 people inside. So he said Brother Qin was coming soon, reassuring everyone to wait and have a meal. It was just as the saying goes. A feast with tortoiseshell jewels is laid out to entertain close friends. Wine, like grapes, intoxicates old acquaintances. Leaving aside Jia Runfu's lavish banquet for his guests, let's talk about Xiubao. Since the day these officials captured him, Fan Jianwei had only said that he was capable, skilled at catching thieves, and could handle this official matter, having no intention of harming him. Little did he know that Xiubao's skill on horseback with spear and sword was indeed unmatched, but in terms of eavesdropping, it was merely average. Moreover, these unscrupulous people were going to arrest 2 suspicious individuals, to frame him and cover for him, yet he refused to do such a thing, content to be like everyone else. Even Fan Jianwei felt deeply troubled and wanted to exonerate him, but Prefect Liu wouldn't let him go unless he compensated for the stolen silver, or Xiubao would be pleased and let the matter drop. These men couldn't come up with 3,000 taels of silver, so they had no choice but to go and endure the beatings. At the last minute, Xiubao and 53 others entered the manor. Prefect Liu, annoyed, was late in holding court, only opening the gates around 9 a.m. Qin Qiang led his men into the manor, and at the ceremonial gate, a guard carried 2 bundles of bamboo strips inside. The ceremonial gate closed, and the guard asked Qin Qiang, any trace of the bandits? He replied, no trace. Prefect Liu's face flushed red, and he said, how can you not find 2 bandits in several months? Clearly, you've been betrayed and are now suffering here, making my lord deal with the consequences. Without further ado, he drew lots and began to beat them. 54 relatives, friends, and neighbors all came to watch, crowding the gates inside and out. He didn't release them one by one. He waited until the beatings were finished, then wrote a deadline, releasing all 54 men at once, each receiving 30 strokes of the cane. The beatings didn't end until the sun had set. At the sound of the gate opening, relatives and friends outside greeted them, weeping and wailing. Those inside, some helped, some carried, all came out. Once outside the gate, everyone went to different places, Some went to the shops, others went home to drink and soothe their aches and pains. Only Xiubo was different. He could withstand a beating. His body was covered in sinewy muscles and ribs. He could stretch his legs and the bamboo strips cracked, even splitting the tiger's mouth of his executioner. Xiubo refused to make things difficult for them, calming himself down and letting them beat him. His skin was broken, but his bones remained intact. After leaving the mansion, he tended to his wounds himself. It was truly a cacophony of music and drums filled the daytime, while several people wept with injustice at dusk. To know what happens next, please read the next chapter.